Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player, games writer, voyage, recorder, videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Is it Thursday already? Good lord. Welcome to my behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Golden Vault, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Keys from the Golden Vault. We are playing characters, Shari, Elowen, Stacey, Tabine, Orbero. This stream is not meant for you. It'll be full of spoilers, but for the rest of you, we're just realizing it's Thursday. Like me, welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. Join our official Discord server with the invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20 for streaming. I use OBS Studio. We're still talking about the Stygian Gambit, which I am hopefully fairly prepared for now. I've got actual notes written in my notes section. I've got the little song jingle done. I've got the introduction done where we meet with Verity and she explains what's going on. But then, as I mentioned, the actual key that she received, because that's something we're doing in my campaign where it's the client that gets the key and then they're told to go meet with the party. So it really just trims out that whole section where the party has to be told to go meet somebody, because even in the very beginning, that's kind of the patron situation I created where they already had a detective agency set up. So people are already going to see Trench because he's got that legit business. And now I guess it's probably too soon for somebody to go to Troll Skull Manor because that's not technically set up yet. So we'll probably still use Trenches here. But I'm thinking after the Stygian Gambit, maybe we can allow a little bit of a time jump, basically. Mainly, and I think somebody already pointed this out, we could have time pass between these missions, because this is, again, a kind of a unique campaign situation where there's no longer this big, like, at least right now, we're not on this excursion. There's not a overall time crunch like there was with frickin' To Annihilation and to some extent Rime with the Eternal Darkness thing. It's just going on serialized adventures. So we could do more of these downtime, in between mission things. Really, that's kind of what Troll Skull Manor was in my case. It just happened to be a dangerous dungeon crawl. But I think in the future we could do some of those. And now that I've given the party their Bastion, that allows us to also take the new Bastion turns, which is what allows everybody to basically do an action of one of the special facilities in the Bastion and kind of take advantage of it. So I think we can look at doing that. And I guess if there's other downtime stuff the players want to do as well, I think there's, crafting rules and stuff. We're not the kind of party that really engages with all that. And frankly, I'm not the kind of DM that's super into downtime stuff. I'm sure you all have figured that out from all the different campaigns and stuff we've played. I generally like to pace my campaigns more like a movie where, shit's happening. Or even like a dramatic series. Like if you think about something like, I'm in the middle of rewatching Stranger Things. Like every single season of Stranger Things is about a week. And, every campaign we play in D&D is maybe about a month or two of in-game playtime. But that just necessitates all the, long rests and travel pretty far. I mean, if it weren't for that, it probably would be like, how much time is actually goes by while you're playing. So it's pretty condensed. Instead of like, a serialized show where it's just, these things happen kind of whenever. So I'm not one to do, and we're just, not interested in doing like shopping things or any kind of like that. The last session was probably the closest we've come in a long time for just one of those kind of in-between sessions of getting stuff done. And that's kind of, it was necessitated because we had a player, literally player character die, and they had to deal with that pretty quickly. So I will say now that because we created this interesting, like, you're indebted to this shady character, and I've literally done the Escape from New York thing where it's like, I've given you the poison and it will kill you after a certain amount of days unless you come back and, do the thing, which instead of giving them like, I could have given them like a quest to do. I feel like that's what a lot of RPGs would probably come up with, is like, hey, you need to go off and do this quest to in order to, like, as your challenge. But here, like, it's almost like the whole game is a bunch of these kind of quests, right? And they just kind of came off of one doing Troll Skull Manor. So it's like, I don't want to insert yet another thing, another bump in the road for them to have to tackle just for this specific thing. And knowing that they can get a lot of money out of these heists kind of partially the point. I mean, the point, I guess, for the Golden Vault specifically, which now that I'm thinking about it, I should just let my players just be heist crew and said screw the Golden Vault and trying to do the like helping people things. I don't care. Is that they can get a lot of money. So they are under a slight time crunch here, so we can't really have time pass because I mentioned the fact that after like 48 hours, they'll start feeling symptoms. And then the rules that I had written down, by the way, are basically that there's no detrimental effect for the first 48 hours after you drink the poison. Now, they have long rested, so you can assume that 8 hours have passed. And if I wanted to, well, it probably wouldn't be 24 hours, because, yeah, if they got it done, they went back, they long rested and leveled up, it probably hasn't quite been 24 hours yet, but at some point, basically, after they arrive and start doing reconnaissance, then 24 hours will have it passed at this place. So I'm trying to keep track of time, in other words. And then once I'm going to encourage them to leave this area, go back to Trench, really come up with a plan, and then go back there. And at that point, they will be basically, ideally, the 48 hours will be up like in the middle of them doing the actual heist, if they time it like that. And at that point, it's just Cherie and Tavine. They will both incur a level of exhaustion. That's basically how I'm going to probably play it, because I'm like, the easiest rules, if a poison is slowly killing you, is exhaustion, because that is just a straight up debuff. And if you take enough of those debuffs, you die. Which, if we mind about the exhaustion rules on how many it actually takes to kill you. So I was thinking after 48 hours, you would suffer 1 level of exhaustion, and then every 24 hours, and there's no save here, every 24 hours after that, you would suffer another level of exhaustion until you die. Because it's pretty nasty shit. But again, they opted into this, sort of. I gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. Your exhaustion is cumulative. Each time you receive it, you gain 1 exhaustion level. You die if your exhaustion is level 6. So how many days is that? Yeah, you know, I never did see that movie. Is that the movie he has to keep on, like, pumping himself full of adrenaline or something? What's funny is I really liked Statham back in his early days when he did, like, Snatch. What was it, the fucking Transporter or something? But I think stuff just got kind of more ridiculous from there. I guess he's alright in the Fast and Furious movies. It's a -2 to all your d20s, by the way. Exhaustion is a lot nastier here. But it's also easier to remember. Way easier to remember. Speed is... Oh, and speed is reduced by 5 feet. So your speed slowly... So you slowly get slower, and you have a -2 globally to everything you do. A d20 test is initiative, it's ability checks, it's attack rolls, it's saving throws. Literally all the things. And you only remove 1... at the end. So that's one thing that I would change with the poison, is that the antidote would remove all of that probably after a long rest. So that is one thing that I would like asterisk on this poison. Like, it basically mimics the whole levels of exhaustion, but once you take the antidote, it would actually remove all of them. Now, in theory, the way I've balanced it is so, again, the party should just be experiencing the first effects, so that first level of exhaustion, possibly during their heist, and that can be added as a complication. Again, if I can encourage them to leave and come back. They might not want to, which is their choice. They may say, like, man, we're on the clock, I don't want to start feeling bad about this, we need to just do this heist now, in which case they'll have fewer prep opportunities, perhaps, but then they won't be experiencing the negative side effects. Or maybe I could be a prick DM and be like, oh, well, this happens to, maybe he lied and it's actually affecting you earlier. Because I do want to be able to pull this off if I can. I don't think they would have the cumulative effects, because I can't see this taking that much more before they're able to go turn in the money, unless it's just kind of a minor bookkeeping thing where if they get the heist done on the second day, they may want to go back and long rest first back at Trenches, and then technically they would start feeling the effects of the next day, which would be another level of exhaustion, but then they're basically on their way to turn in the money to Schemo, in theory. But it does encourage them, obviously, to get that amount of money. And obviously that money can be found in the vault. Although I need to look up and see exactly how much money is found in the vault, because they have potentially a huge payday available for them, which, I don't know, hopefully we can maybe argue that they can put some of that money into the manor as well. You should make a countdown clock. You can mark down as they go. You can probably make a multifaceted token. Oh, interesting. Let's try to make it visible. My only worry is that might encourage them to get it done soon. Well, I guess that is their prerogative, though. But it would also help keep things. I don't know. I almost feel like I should keep that as a DM behind the screen, because I have so few things that I can keep behind my proverbial screen that I feel like that's one of the few things I can hold on to. So, but anyway, the 24 hours will have expired during their recon when they first arrive here, and then again, assuming we can encourage them to leave this place because it doesn't close. There's no real place to hide out in or anything. To leave this place, return to Trench, and he will even say, "Hey, you're not under a big time constraint. We obviously want to save this one's brother as soon as possible, but go scope it out, get as much information as you can, and then come back here, and then let's make a plan, and I can requisition whatever gear or special things you need." And that would hopefully encourage them to leave and come back. And then when they come back, those two would start feeling the effects that day. What's interesting, remember, they're on a opposite from Elwyn, who is currently suffering from the effects of Raised Dead. So the more days elapse, the more Tavine and Sherry will feel the effects of the poison, but the more that Elwyn will actually get stronger, because she is currently, I believe when she first got resurrected, she was at a -4, is that correct? For Raised Dead? I do appreciate that there's some kind of like penalty here, besides obviously the big cost, which honestly the cost only affects like tier 1. Once party members get up to like tier 2 and above, I even feel like the cost is not that big of a deal. Plus a lot of people can start casting Raised Dead themselves at some point. Yeah, you have a -4 penalty to D20 tests. Each time the target finishes a long rest, the penalty is reduced by 1. So currently, when we start this Friday session, she will be to -3 because they did long rest right after. I think they did. I think they went straight to Schemos. Yeah, because we leveled up and I wanted to wait until obviously she was back. So she'll be to -3 going into tonight's session, and then tomorrow. And then if they do the reconnaissance and then leave and get another long rest, then she'll be to -2 going into the actual heist itself. Still not great, but a little bit better. And then at some point, the others will suffer from exhaustion. So there may be a point where over half the party is at a -2 to their D20 test. That's pretty nasty. But that's why dying is not good. 4-hour increments until next effects take hold. Yeah, I think that's the only effects I want to do. I just want to keep things real simple, because stuff's already going to be a lot happening, and it's going to be tricky for me to even remember. I'll have to leave notes for myself about the poison thing, but I think exhaustion, like I could do things like, oh, you start having disadvantage, or you start doing other things, and I could have this whole table of effects, but honestly, I think having Schemo actually tell the truth and be like, hey, you won't feel anything for like the first 48 hours, but then after that, you'll start to feel bad. And I think like start to feel bad, like feverish and sick, is like exhaustion is just the easiest thing to do that, to translate that as. So that is how we're going to handle that little bit. In terms of the map, I think we've got most of the map features figured out. I guess I could put patrons around the circus area. Oh, I loved the idea. We talked about this on Monday about, I think it was Lumpy that suggested this, the freaking animals. So we mentioned that the security staff was going to be patrons who had ultimately gambled away all their money, become indebted to the house, and then sold their souls to Mammon because they couldn't pay any more money. And the contract states like, well, now you work here. Basically, you never leave, which is kind of a fun like horror movie thing where it's like, oh, you never wanted to leave, now you can't ever leave anyway. And it also kind of lobotomizes some of your personality, where it's like now you're super loyal to the house and that's all you care about. That's all written in the contract, basically. I do love the idea that some of the circus animals were perhaps also transformed from patrons. I don't know how Quentin would make the distinction between those who become animals and those who become guards. Maybe just people who are physically fit would become guards, but those who are gambling addicts and who are just not, physical in any way, or maybe particularly depraved and just nasty, then maybe they would actually turn into become the animals somehow. But I guess I'm not clear on if that means they also have contracts written that are all stored in one area. And it also means that, again, anybody who's been given a contract would presumably be all in the vault, and the party would be able to nullify that contract by destroying it, if we assume that it's just as easy as physically ripping up the paper would destroy the contract. We could argue they have to do something else with it, but I'm not sure. Whatever else they would do, I'd want to keep it in the casino to keep with the heist theme. And I'm not sure if it wouldn't make sense for Quentin to have the means to not... If it requires holy water, in other words, it makes no sense that they would have holy water here and then they wouldn't know that until they're in the casino. So I would hate to spring that on them or something. So maybe just physically destroying it would be good enough. Although you could argue maybe physically destroying the contract does something. Like maybe the player has to take psychic damage, or maybe each contract they destroy summons a devil or something. I don't know. Maybe that's being a little too harsh on the players. But I like that twist that the animals are actual people. The only bummer with that twist is it does throw a monkey wrench into if somebody like Elowin wants to free the animals because they're an animal lover and a druid, and then it turns out they're actually just people who have been transformed into animals. I guess if we go with the true polymorph rules, then they really are animals. I'm gonna look at the true polymorph again, because I know polymorph didn't quite work because I think they retained their original typing. But true polymorph, which is a straight up 9th level spell, I believe does completely change. It's only supposed to last an hour. New creature can be any kind you chose. Target's game statistics are replaced by the stat block of the new form. The only thing it says is it retained its original hit point die, which means all these creatures would have 10 hit points. Alignment and personality. Alignment and personality. So if you're a beast, I guess you would still have your own personality, but you don't have a language, so I don't think you can speak. But if you have speak with beast, then maybe that would reveal the fact that they're polymorphed. So I'll have to come up with some specific rules for this, because I have a feeling that players might want to interact with that, if we want to do it that way. I mean, the idea that they're also just, abused animals as a circus is also perfectly fine, I think, and would make for, motivating storytelling. I mentioned that I used the performer stat block, I think it is. Yeah, for the tiefling acrobats. But I'm also trying to figure out if it's enough to just have them be employees, because if they've got these animals in the circus that are definitely not well taken care of, are they just kind of asshole employees who don't give a shit? In which case they're kind of similar to all the other employees who just work here and are otherwise not involved in the devilry part of everything. In fact, I guess none of the employees are really directly involved the way I've done this. Only Quentin is really made the path. I guess, well, so the security guards have signed the contract and thus have become unwitting or witting employees of the house, and thus are tied to mammon and devilry and all that. The regular employees, I'm just having that they were just hired based on their tiefling status, Quentin doesn't necessarily want to give like every single person a con. He doesn't necessarily need to see all that as long as the place keeps moving. I mean, he can just be kind of an asshole businessman. He's not paying anybody particularly well. In fact, he's probably targeting a lot of tieflings who are, in poverty or something, like I think Verity's case was, and giving them jobs based on that. So, doesn't need to make contracts for that. But then the performers, for me, are just like another level of asshole, where it's one thing to just work at a bar, but it's another thing to run this like circus with abused or semi-abused animals. So I'm trying to figure out if the performers are devils in disguise, or maybe only one of them is, or they're just, I don't know. I mean, they could just be asshole employees that are just more sadistic and don't give a shit about the animals. So it might not be that big of a deal. But their stat block is definitely tougher than what it was initially, which is an average of like 30 hit points, although they do not have any kind of multi-attack or anything other than that. And I figured that when the party first arrives, there'll be somebody who's perhaps, I guess I need to figure out when the performances are. I guess we could do a performance each night. So we could do like one performance. When the players first arrive, she's one of the performers is like giving out, flyers or something, and there'll be like advertisements for the Circus Maldami or something, whatever it's called. And then we can see the performance there, in which case we'll need to get a bunch of NPCs to actually sit in there. It's supposed to be this kind of old school Coliseum amphitheater thing. Gosh, this area is so big. If I complain about how big this map is, like, why is it this big? It's so big. It just puts more pressure on me to fill it out, because it's supposed to be a, actual establishment. This is me like doing the equivalent of the post-edit, digitally recreating crowd scenes. Copy and pasting all these tokens around. It's like, wait a minute, I can see that exact crowd amount in all these different areas. Yeah. It's looking a little better. It's just randomly rolling hit points for some of these stat blocks. A few more you everywhere. That's a lot of people, though, who's in this circus performance. Jeez. That might be too many. I think about it, because like all these people would presumably be filing out into the area. Assholes in the circus, like in that Fellini film Strada. I mean, there's plenty of. I feel like a lot of like 80s and 90s movies had like circus as a villain thing, like Circus Bad. Maybe I'm only thinking of like one or two movies, but maybe I watched them a lot. But as a kid, I was always like, man, the circus is such an evil, abusive place full of bad guys. And I think I went to the circus a few times as a kid, I remember. I was like, yeah, this is fine. The fair was more fun. What else? I've written down what Verity does and doesn't know, because that's important information. She doesn't know about the soul contracts. She doesn't know where the vault is located. Basically, I'm assuming that she hasn't been... You know what I should do is probably lock this door, but I guess it doesn't make sense that they're... Like, would doors beyond the employees' doors also be locked? I think so. This is just another level of lock. I mean, it's the same pass card, I guess. But she would have no reason, and in fact, there's probably a sign on the door that says security staff only to go into 16, and that's where she hasn't gone. She hasn't gone to 16, 17, or 18, or 19. That's all the vault, the security rooms, and everything, so she can only presume. She has been in the hallways, which are 18, the break room, which is 13, and I guess I don't know if she's specifically been in Quentin's office. One thing I was thinking of doing is getting rid of this door here and making this be the like devil worshipping room and having like a shrine to Mammon, but have it be only accessible from Quentin's office. Maybe I should get rid of the door here then, actually. And then create a door like between. And that way they can't, basically they only even see this if they deal with Quentin personally, and that's not something he would necessarily put out for like any old employee to see. So that's why I would remove the door. These rooms are the exact same. I think they're just literally two different offices. So I'm thinking of transforming either 14 or 15 into his Shrine to Mammon room, which unfortunately I'll have to like cover up some stuff that's already in there because they already have desk stuff in there, but then make it accessible only from his office. So basically that's the room that's only seen by people he's going to offer like the final contract to, and that's where they actually sign it. Maybe they have to like prick their hand on like Mammon's claws or something, and then ritualistically sign that contract there in that room in the presence of Mammon. Make a woman a bearded devil. That's pretty funny, actually. You could. Honestly, one thing I was thinking about bearded devil, you could also flavor that as hair. Technically, they just have like cool, like dreadlock hair or something, locks. It's almost like a Medusa, but instead of a Medusa, it's like spear. It's like what's the chick from the Marvel Inhumans? Medusa, actually, I think is her name. Where she had didn't have hair like it was serrated and stabbing, but just to where it could like grab stuff. Entrapta from She-Ra. So 14, it says, is technically his office. And then 15 is a clerk's office. So why don't we make 14 his real office? And yeah, he's always got his dog with him. The Hellhound. Which Verity will report that, he's not a villain who stays in his office, honestly. I'll have him in here originally. But he walks the floor. He's got his dog with him. I think I might lean the name Jack. Just a big black dog named Jack. I think that's kind of funny. And he is very chummy and constantly overseeing everything. Very active micromanager. And basically is always scouting out and trying. And he's not somebody who regrets his devil contract. He loves this whole thing. He was born for this role. And he is constantly looking for people who can be exploited and manipulated, and then eventually made as a soul contract. Maybe he has to have a certain amount of souls, or maybe it's not even that formal. Mammon kind of knows that not only is this casino funneling in gold, which I guess what's interesting is I think some gold would go to Mammon directly somehow, but also they do have to keep some amount of money in the vault so they can be constantly paying out with the money, which is another interesting thing that maybe Verity would be able to kind of say that the tills, I believe, all magically deposit coins into the vault. So there's never a time where you have like a security staff come and like get the money or the chips or anything. Chips is what's used, but then they deposit when people pay for the chips, the money, which I guess are at these kind of kiosks here. The money apparently is some kind of like magical portal. Like once it goes into the till, it instantly appears in the vault. I forgot where it actually says that in the rules, but I thought that was interesting. And it does not work, I believe, in reverse. So you can't just like reach your hand in like a bag of holding and pull out all the money. Cashier stations. The casino has 4 cashier stations in areas 2 and 4, which are all at the entrance. Where tiefling cashiers in smiling devil masks make change or trade out cash for chips. The casino's chips are thin painted wooden discs. Stamped on both sides of every chip is the casino's emblem, a golden pitchfork. A cashier has no cash on hand, but is attuned to a magical sigil on the station's countertop. The cashier places coinage on the sigil. Oh, it's not even a till. Sending it directly to the vault, or pulls coins, never mind, they can pull coins from the vault through the same sigil. Withdrawals of more than 250 gold require a second cashier to confirm the transaction. Transactions occurring through the sigils are automatically recorded in the magical ledger in the clerk's office. So that's pretty interesting. I would actually lower that withdrawal amount, probably say like 100 gold requires a second, and if it was like 250, I think Quentin himself would like come over. So it's not even a till, it's like a magical sigil on the table. Maybe they've got some kind of like a tattoo on their hands. In which case, Verity, I guess as part of her being fired, would have been de-attuned to that. Maybe she says they have to attune to it every shift when they come in. They because I mean I feel like this is something that's the players are gonna really pay attention to, is like, where's the money coming and going. Maybe they have to go into the break room and there's a place in there, like kind of during check-in, where they get like this temporary tattoo placed on their hand. In which case, I should probably put a guard in the break room who's like in charge of all that. Maybe. Unless Quentin is really such a micromanager, they actually have to come see Quentin and he oversees it. But people be now, because people be constantly coming in for their shifts. You wouldn't have to oversee all that. But that is an important piece of information about how the money comes and goes through the vault. So she would know that if she was an employee, which I haven't specified actually if she was... ooh, that's actually something I should think of. What did she do? What would be the most interesting thing for her to do? Because you could work the cashier station, in which case you would definitely know about it. You could work one of the games of chance, in which case you would probably know about it. Or you could work in the bar, in which case you may know about it. Or you could work in the circus. But I don't want her to work in the circus because she's not an asshole. Probably her being a bartender would be the most interesting. Because she doesn't really care as much about gambling like her brother would. And her job would be easily replaceable. Serve drinks, yeah. Yeah, which there are. I don't have different tokens, by the way. I only have the one just generic employee token. I figure that's the easiest thing to use. So players can recognize who's basically uniformed. Swipe for the temp tattoo. Yeah. I mean, it's a possibility that players could try to do that, but I'm thinking that maybe that's only even done in a back room. Okay, but we do want to get rid of this door here. I just delete it, which unfortunately I can't get rid of the door is printed on the map. Unless I kind of crop this actual image, which I could try to do that. Make it look not so good, but maybe we can do that. Let's see what I can do real quick. My excellent art skills. Take that right there. Drop it. Save it. This might be too small of a thing to do. Add it into market with a B. Keys. Call it Stygian wall. Whoops. What did I click? Nope, I don't want to start that. Add Stygian wall to here. Let's see what it looks like. I don't know why it's a darker color. Yep, just looks like a darker color. I guess I could try to manually lighten it. Tint it. It's also distracting. About brown. God, all these look terrible. I don't know why it got so... Well, it's better than having a door there, I guess. It might not be super visible in the dynamic lighting layer. Why is there a dot here? It's weird. I did not do that. All right, now let's just draw a line. There. And then put you on the map layer. Best I can do. I don't know why when I cropped it and put it in there, it ended up being a much darker shade. I literally did print screen. All right, but that way we can turn this into his devil office shrine, which... Can I just search fiend or devil statue? I don't know. What's a good art piece I could find? Try looking for a statue, see if we can find anything there. And then we'll need to put a door just in the wall. Okay. Just take this and shorten it. To there. We'll just put it on the edge for simplicity's sake. Add a door right there. That can be our... Actually, you know what? We can make it a secret door. Boom. So you only find it with a good perception check, or if somehow you've convinced Quentin to open it up, which he has no pushover. There we go. Now it's a secret door in the wall. Yeah, I want there to be a cool I don't know why I'm picturing a statue so much. Something where they can like prick their finger. And sign with their blood. Why is it always dwarven statues? I want a devil statue. Not a Cthulhu one. It's all dwarves and gargoyles. Or people. Maybe I have to search fiend and stuff instead. A lot of times it's easier for me to search the Roll20 Marketplace than it is the actual art gallery. I guess if I just have a generic looking statue, that could work also. I'll put a statue here to remind myself. Insert devil statue here. I always feel like a ritual circle is some kind of like teleportation thing, but it's like where you would like summon creatures. And maybe he does summon devils. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of like actual devils here necessarily. Even though I could, and there are plenty of fiendish stat blocks we could use here. In fact, it says in the original adventure that he can summon spine devils. But again, that's for level 2, and spine devils are honestly not that strong. I guess you could, like the flying monkeys from Wizard of Oz or something. They're designed in mass. So CR2 is actually higher than I was thinking. They do have multi-attack. Their main thing is that they can fly, and they have flyby. So they're just a pain in the ass. And so in tight quarters, they're not very impressive. But if he did, for some reason, unleash them in the cavern, then they'd be pretty nasty. But this isn't it's not a dungeon. This is an establishment. So like summoning a bunch of demons to cause havoc is certainly not something he wants to do. He definitely wants to keep up appearances, that there's a whole hell theme here, but it's all to serve in fun and for entertainment. So I don't have a whole lot of like actual fiendish creatures. We could argue that maybe he, the biggest one is the Hellhound, obviously, that he's got a legit Hellhound stat block. And again, the fact that he is the cultist fanatic stat block as well. I was thinking that maybe he could summon like a Quasit. And I think at one point I even thought maybe because he followed Verity with the Quasit, or maybe he's got a couple of Quasits, they can turn invisible at will. So maybe he's been spying on what she's up to just in case. And thus, when the party arrives, Quentin is actually aware of them and their actions. I don't know if that makes things more or less enjoyable for the party, though. It certainly makes him to be a much more challenging villain, because then they're not able to get a lot of the other stuff down it. But it also might make things too challenging if he's literally aware of their every move, and then as soon as they start doing things, he just gathers everybody up and arrests them. Like, it kind of negates the party from... It takes away too much of them, I guess, if he's fully aware. But maybe he just knows enough information that, like, okay, Verity went and maybe hired this other crew to investigate, and I need to be on them with that. I don't know. I don't have to do all that either. That could just be too much for me to try to run while also trying to handle all this other stuff as having Quentin on them. Plus, as soon as they arrive, there's security mirrors everywhere. That's probably too much. Because once the security cameras are capturing footage of everybody, like, they're on it, and Quentin would be on them very quickly. And he would just immediately be talking to them. Like I said, he's not somebody who sits in his office. He's going to be coming out and walking the floor and very much schmoozing with people. And as soon as the party arrives, he'll be schmoozing with them, and they can instantly get a rapport. And he is certainly a character from everything I've gathered. See if it mentions specifically about Quentin. Maybe it's Sounder Adventure background. I changed his motivations and stuff a little bit. Where does it talk about it? Playing the heist, maybe? I can never find the information I want when I'm actually looking for it. Jolly Casino, planning the heist, starting the adventure. Maybe I can find it faster in the book. Or is it really just talking about him in his office? There it is, Quentin Toggle Pocket. I guess it's just in the Afterlife Casino section. Casino features. It's after Games of Chance. There it is, Quentin Toggle Pocket. There's a Mephistophelian aspect to his appearance. Okay, role-playing Quentin, because the part I need. Sees himself as Very's victim, portrays himself as a martyr for losing to her. I'm skipping all that. He sees the theft and his new casino as his rightful chance to even the scales and reclaim his dignity. I guess I'm changing a lot of that. Quentin is a classic villain, happy to monologue if given the chance. How will the characters know how brilliant he is otherwise? All right, I guess I am changing a little bit about who this guy is, but he's less of a... I don't know, he's just a confident gambling card shark who won it big because of his contract with Mammon. And his personality and whole thing is like, yeah, devil contracts are great. Look at this. Like, I run this whole business. He just doesn't see it as a bad thing. Basically, this is just wonderful for him. It's been nothing but good for him. So, and of course, gambling has nothing been good to him. So this is all just a positive thing for him. Now, he would not necessarily be he does understand that, not everybody's going to jump at the chance to sign up for these contracts. He's not stupid. So he does make sure to only offer that to people who are already very in debt, very addicted, and literally exploit people's weaknesses. So he's not going to come in and immediately be like, hey, step into my Mammon office and sign this contract. He's going to wait until they're at their most vulnerable to offer that to them. Now, if the party is dumb and says like, hey, what the fuck did you do to this guy? Like, we're here, and immediately start telling him about the things, then he's not going to want to talk about that, basically. And if they press him on it, he will throw them out, in which case they will basically lose all chance of their reconnaissance. The party will be allowed to bring weapons in here. Kind of like I guess a Wild West aspect to this place. But I like the idea of one of the security members having a wand of detect magic. And this wand, maybe not literally a wand of, I guess so. If the party wants to steal it, they can. And he just raises it up and basically detects all magic anybody's got. And then any magic items, they will have to leave behind. Maybe they've got like some kind of locker and a key or something. They can retrieve it later. I don't want to like necessarily take it from them, but it's basically to prevent anybody from cheating. It's less about having like flaming swords and stuff and less about like, hey, you've got like this magic dice or something that allows you to cheat. We definitely need to confiscate that. So they would take any magic items the party has and want to secure them in some kind of area that's at the front. Maybe I'll put like treasure chests or something at the front of the area that will like store their magic gear. But they don't have to store their weapons. I would allow them to take weapons on there, and that would be part of their security system thing. But yeah, they could play it really stupid if they wanted to just confront Quentin immediately and talk to him about all this stuff, and then I would not broach any of that. I would basically give them one warning about, hey, this is a casino establishment. You're here to have fun. If you're not here to have fun, then I need to ask you to leave. And if they press on it further, then he will snap his fingers, basically, and security mirror will have all this, and we'll have more guards show up. I actually don't have a whole lot of guard. If the party does want to brute force this, I actually don't have a whole lot of guards at my disposal, and that's something I could change because of the level scaling that we're doing from level 2 to 4. If you feel like I need to. Right now, the base default is that we use the Thug stat block, which in 2024 is the Tough stat block, which is basically the same. Although, importantly, I believe they no longer have multi-attack. I think the Thugs used to have multi-attack. I don't think the Toughs have that anymore. But they are much stronger defensively, which is kind of a bummer for the party. Like, you can't really take these guys out in one swift, like, coup de grace. D&D, it just doesn't necessarily work well as a, like, you know, Deus Ex, Dishonor type game where you can just kind of go back and, choke people out or something in one move. Creatures have too many hit points for that, basically, once you get beyond level 2. And I like the idea of the security being, like, lobotomized people for the most part, but also strong. But the default only has basically one person per room. So there's one in A1, A2, A3. A4 is just this side table here, which the side table, it looks like it's a bunch of roulette or craps, but actually when I read the thing, I completely forgot about this. It's like a rat race, which is not what the map shows. This does not look like a fucking... It's supposed to be one long table of rat racing, and that's not what the artist drew. It's a narrow racing track dominates the center of this section, with shouting and cheering patrons clustered around it. Numbered rats scurry along the respective lanes. As the rats cross the finish line, cries of victory and groans of defeat erupt from the patrons. And weirdly, there's no way to actually bet on this, I believe. The rules, like there's no rules for the party to engage in this, which is odd. So I don't know whether to keep the, because I've got rules for like roulette wheels. We can have the party play that. I may just keep this roulette wheel, even though the rat race thing is kind of a fun idea. But I don't know. I need to see about if there's rules to actually work with that. And then there's a guard in A5, which I was going to have that be Verity's brother Garrett, who's just another guard, essentially. There's one in A10, I guess, just kind of the area outside of the circus and the tournament. And then there's one in the tournament area of A9. So that's a total of like 5 guards, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guards. And then there's another 3 guards in the security office who are monitoring everything, and any of them could, you know, exit, not all of them, I guess, to go back up the party. But like on a 1-to-1 ratio, if the party really wanted to throw down with the security, you know, they're level 4 now, they probably could, which is a little bit of a problem. Now, the biggest scaling I did is Quentin is way stronger than he was before. He's the Cultist Fanatic stat block with near max hit points, which I believe is a CR2. So he's got some spellcasting powers. He can do Spiritual Weapon. You know, all that's pretty nice. And then the biggest thing is he's got a Hellhound by his side, which is actually even technically stronger to CR3. Has fire breath capabilities and a multi-attack, bite, pack tactics. All that is good stuff, I guess. But I mean, technically they could resort to violence in here, but hopefully they wouldn't because of all the patrons. And you know, just the whole concept of a heist. Again, it's the heist falls apart if the party just wants to treat it as a dungeon crawl. So part of that is kind of the buy-in of like, hey, these are all innocent people in here, and I even establishing through Verity that the guards may actually be like just people who are given nasty contracts and thus are sort of victims, but are kind of pseudo mind controlled basically through their contract. So, you know, you want to try, like, one of the guards is literally her brother that we're trying to save. They don't necessarily know that, and she wouldn't know that, but that's what's actually going on here. And there are plenty of opportunities to fight, not plenty, but, you know, once they get to the security office, they can actually fight these guys. And then there's kind of a pseudo boss fight in the actual vault where I've got a Bone Naga, which is something that Mammon has sent to help guard the vault area. I did not include, which we could talk about, and I don't think the party will get there tomorrow, is that Quentin has, the original creature in there was a Minotaur skeleton, and Quentin has a rod that controls the Minotaur skeleton, and the party could get their hands on it and then easily turn it off or use it to wreak havoc, and that could be a lot of fun if they manage to grab it from Quentin's office. I didn't include that because I don't want them to have like a power over a Bone Naga in any way, because I upped that creature quite a bit. So it's kind of an interesting idea. Maybe he's got something that controls the Hellhound instead, but also I just think that his like fiendish contracts and relationship to Mammon would allow him to control the Hellhound. Like, it's probably Mammon who sent the Hellhound, and the Hellhound is, you know, ordered by Mammon to follow Quentin's instructions. So I don't think there'd be any kind of like item or relationship there. Because like I said, Quentin is a true believer. He really likes it. Someone suggests to use devils for security, and the guards are all fiends. So that kind of goes around. As I explained, I actually like the idea that the guards are just former patrons who were given those kind of offer we can't refuse devil contracts, and that now we have become loyal guards of this establishment. But yeah, I don't have an actual lot of real fiend. We could put, you know, one thing that's interesting is I'm not using the prison cells currently, and we could put some kind of devil in the cells to maybe it enjoys torturing people who have been captured, basically. I don't know if they would be awaiting. How do the cells get used? I guess if anybody is rowdy or they get caught cheating. The problem is, again, that might give the game away, that people just think it's all for show. But if somebody is actually caught cheating and thrown in jail and there's an actual devil like messing with them, then I don't know if it might be a little too obvious. Because even the Hellhound people will be like, oh, it's just a big scary dog. But once I have somebody with like a bearded devil or something like that, that gets a little nastier. I would just have the tick magic thing, have them take items that could be used for cheating, as taking all magic items might be a bit much, as some people might need magic items to function. Anubis is, are you the lawyer representing the party right now? Because as a DM, I could push back and say that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, it even says that D&D is not balanced around the party needing any magic items. Which we could argue about. And that's something I know I've come across as a DM in terms of like, oh man, I love magic items as a loot item, and I love my players using them and me rewarding them. And it's a shame that they've balanced players so strongly that they no longer need magic items. So every time you give the party magic items, that kind of necessitates the DM to course correct and then balance to that new difficulty level that the party can punch at, basically. But yeah, I do see the point of that being dangerous. But I also think there should be something here, because magic, I don't know how common magic is in the Forgotten Realms for the average person. Probably not super common. But I just think I don't know, there should be something against magic items. Maybe the detect magic can, obviously, they have to show their items like you would at a at the airport or something. And if the party can explain what the items are for, then they can be allowed to proceed instead of being confiscated. So, and like they don't have very much right now anyway. They have like the Mask of Beast that allow them to cast Animal Friendship. They have, I guess potions would technically count. Which would be tough because potions have all kinds of uses. And you could argue that, like, well, what if a potion has, like, enhance ability? I don't know. It'd be like the airport where they're like, you got to drink all these potions now. Can't be allowed in here with the items, but you can, like, use everything now. I mean, it'd be funny for Vero to, like, argue why he needs the Dagger of Venom. Like, I need to be able to inject poison in somebody with this dagger. They'd be like, what? Can't allow that. So it is a tricky situation. Someone has to be devil's advocate. No, I appreciate it. I mean, that is something that I'm changing. I'm at that point. That's less about me level scaling and me more like worried about the security of this place, because like either that becomes a usual thing that like magic items are at least checked over, or when the adventurers show up, they're going to suddenly bring about extra security themselves because they are armed to the fucking teeth. And that would be unusual for showing up to a casino armed to the fucking teeth. And that should give off some red flags to the security team. So you could also argue that just because they're shown on the security mirror like that, and Trench could even say like, hey, if you guys show up with all of your stuff, that's going to invite, some questions. I'm not going to tell you to not do it, but just be aware. It's going to be pretty noticeable. And it's possible that you could, and that could be part of what the party says, like, hey, this, so-and-so is my bodyguard, and this is my, emotional support scimitar, whatever else. Yeah, maybe checked over. All right, so maybe you're convincing me to do less strict confiscation of items and more like it's an airport security and you have to explain like all of your things when you step through. And that gives the party another chance for like, some fun role-playing shenanigans, I guess. You be careful with upping security to -2 to 3 player die rolls. Yeah, it could be a possibility. Like I said, if the party does take the full 2 days, the first day that they're doing reconnaissance and show up here, they'll have one person at a -3, everybody else will be fine. And if they leave and come back the next day, then that one person will be at -2, and then 2 more people at some point during the heist, they'll start feeling the effects and achieve that -2. So it won't be the whole time. And I do want to try to encourage them, especially this time, like, hey, come in, check everything out, play it cool. Again, you can't, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, but, and then see what you need and how you want to plan things, and then plan on leaving and going back to Trench, talking about what I'm really hoping they do is I can really paint the waterfall. So I'm picturing this place as being outside Waterdeep, a few miles outside Waterdeep. There's some signage, you take a path. There's a docks, with a river, and you get on these docks, you pay some, a cursory fee, and the farrier takes you, and the river goes into this giant cave, and it leads down to this underground, probably only like a 15 or 20 minute boat ride, but it's very slow. I'm picturing like a theme park ride or something, where it's very chill. And then that leads to this area here, which I assume, it doesn't showcase this great on the map, but I assume this river, these are like bridges essentially that go over the river. So this river just continues to go all the way to the north and then exits out into what I think is going to be a large overhanging cliff. So the body of water basically is the ocean, but there's not going to be like a lot of light pouring in necessarily because you're kind of in, essentially you've got the cliff area, water beneath you, and then there's still land above you for a little bit, and then in the distance you can kind of see light coming through. So if you fall into the water, eventually you can swim out to basically the Sword Coast. But it's like a 100-foot drop. So I do want to paint that as an interesting possibility, but have it be like a near impossible challenge to actually enter the place that way. Not technically impossible, but for their level and the stuff that they have, it's pretty close to impossible. But you could exit that way if things are getting really hairy, because it's going to be tricky to just grab a boat and like quickly take off down the river. I guess if you've really kicked everybody's ass, then maybe you can just leave. But and that's something we could also. Oh, another door up here. That's released. If Quentin is actually killed, then maybe a devil appears in his space. Maybe he turns into a devil or something, and because he was so, that's just what Mammon did with his soul. And makes things really difficult for the party. So, if they want to take him out, they can, but that is technically not the main quest. The main quest is just to get to the vault and get in the contracts, but also they'll want to certainly get some of that sweet, sweet money. So, unfortunately, the most challenging thing about these heists prep stuff with is that I really have to kind of prep fucking everything, because I don't know what all they're going to be able to see and check out. So the whole dungeon has to basically be prepared for tomorrow, even though we could easily and probably will spend at least 3 sessions here. But because they could split up and do different things, and it's all very non-linear, I have no idea what they're going to come across. And a lot of this is not combat related, which combat always, takes up a good chunk of time in the adventure. And really, if they play their cards right, pun very much intended, they may not get into any combat until they make it all the way. The only really forced combat encounter, in fact, in the whole adventure, is this fight against the Bone Naga that I've created in the vault. If they somehow make it past all the security mirrors and stuff undetected and do all that, it's going to be very challenging, but that could be a possibility. And then we kind of mentioned about the tournament here. And honestly, for the games, a 3-Dragon Annie is a game. It involves like just rolling 3d12s. I'm going to look at that a little bit some more, as well as the advice that people have given in terms of their casino games. I'm also going to look at the possibility of like just having blackjack be one of the games, because you can technically play, I think, these games via Roll20 with the whole playing card system. I mean, we could, with just a simple card deck here. I don't know if you can. Gosh, that'd be something I need to test with other players, I guess. If you deal other people's cards, I don't know if you can make some of them visible or not to play blackjack properly. But that could also be just a fun way to introduce, to use these playing cards, basically. I don't know if we need to play full-on poker. Might take too long in some cases. And I like the idea of having the tournament be actual skill checks here. But I'm talking about, I guess, the casino games themselves. I do like having a slot machine one and a roulette wheel one. But maybe just having straight-up blackjack could be a fun possibility as well. All right, folks, I believe that is going to do it for this session of Crafting the Golden Vault. If you enjoy the content, as always, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shout out to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocide, Roleplay, Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Libby Spuds, Wardy, Mill, C, Tom, Leading the Dogs, Marcus, Snuggie, Hugo, Sasha, John, Morbid, Reba, Jealous Guy, Zim, Jesse, Dante, Sarah, how about them, Nix, and Sean. Gold patrons, RPG, Papercraft, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Douglas, and Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Scott, Rivers, Drake, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow.